Yo, what's up guys, it's King Sean here, and in today's video, I'll be bringing you guys my Week 2 Giants versus Commanders preview video. This Sunday is going to be our home opener. I will be attending the game, so it should be a lot of fun. But in today's video, I'll be bringing you guys my keys to victory for Sunday's game, and the injury report, as well as my final score prediction. So, if you guys are new to my channel, leave a like down below, subscribe, turn on notifications. I'm on the 4K subs, so if you could hit that sub button, I'd really appreciate it. Alright, so gonna go over the injury report real quick. Starting off with us, of course, Emmanuel Forbes. He had surgery today on his thumb. He said that surgery went well, though, on his IG story, but he will be out for Sunday's game. Now, he will not be placed on the injury report, so maybe he's back in maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe they decide to, put a sling on, I think it's on his left hand. I could be wrong, but maybe they decide to put a sling on whichever, hand has that thumb injury, and then he'll be out there playing again. But Forbes getting injured doesn't really hurt us a lot. Glad that, the surgery went well, and hopefully he recovers well. But, doesn't really hurt our secondary. Not really. It could actually maybe benefit our secondary because now we can see, what Noah Igbenogany and Michael Davis can do out there. But, hopefully Emmanuel Forbes, he can get better soon. And then Jer'Zhan Newton, he is questionable for Sunday's game. Dan Quinn said they'll make a decision tomorrow on whether or not he will play. So we'll see what happens. If I had to guess, he was a limited participant over the past 2 days, so maybe he plays, but we shall see. John Kine says he doesn't think he will play, but maybe he will, so we'll see. And then Brandon Coleman, Tyler Owens, Brian Robinson, and then Trent Scott, they were full participants. Now, Cleveland Farrell and Quan Martin, they were added on the injury report today. Cleveland Farrell, he didn't practice here with a knee injury. He was actually dealing with the knee injury in the preseason, I'm pretty sure. So now it's kind of coming back, I guess. So he didn't practice today. He's questionable for Sunday's game. That's one of our starting edge rushers. So if he doesn't play, Dante Fowler Jr., he looked pretty solid against the Bucs last week. He got a good amount of pressure on Baker Mayfield, and then we also have Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Jamin Davis. Maybe Cleveland Farrell out, means Jamin Davis, he will get more snaps. And Jamin looked good last week. I think he only had 12 or 13 snaps, and he looked good on a good amount of them. He had, I think, 2 straight TFL. So, hey, man, I would give Jamin Davis more snaps this week, in my opinion, and especially if Cleveland Farrell is out. Even if Cleveland Farrell plays, and he might still play. He didn't practice today, but he could play. But if you don't practice on Friday, there's a good chance that you probably don't play, on game day, which is Sunday. So we'll see if Cleveland Farrell plays or not. And then Quan Martin, our starting free safety, he was a limited participant today. He is dealing with, let me see here, a hamstring injury. He is questionable for Sunday's game, but to be honest, not too worried about him. He should play. If he doesn't play, then I think it would be maybe Percy Butler or Derek Forrest who would get his starting spot. I'm not a too big of a fan of Percy Butler. I honestly prefer Derek Forrest, but I'm pretty sure Quan Martin will play. Only real guy I'm concerned about is Cleveland Farrell and, Johnny Newton. But Johnny Newton, if he doesn't play this week, then it is what it is. Hopefully he can play next week against the Bengals on Monday night. Now, moving on to the Giants injury report. They're pretty healthy. Malik Nabers, who was dealing with that knee injury yesterday, he was limited, but he was a full participant today, and he's good to go for Sunday's game. Darius Slayton, he's been removed from concussion protocol, so he will play. And then Micah McFadden's good to go. Their only players that are out are cornerback Nick McLeod, linebacker Darius Masaw, and then receiver Gunnar Olszewski. So they are going to be out for Sunday's game, but overall the Giants, they're pretty healthy. They're good to go. All right, so my first key to victory is to get pressure on Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, y'all already know he's bad, all right? He's pretty terrible. Now, I'm a Commanders fan. We really can't say a whole lot about Daniel Jones. We can. He wasn't good last week against the Vikings. He threw 2 interceptions, one of those being a pick 6. He's thrown more pick 6s than touchdown passes ever since he got paid by the Giants in the offseason of 2023, which is crazy now. I know he was injured in the second half of the season last year, but still, man, more pick 6s than touchdowns is just unreal. I think he's thrown like 3 so far. So that's just really bad. And then one of them came against the Vikings last week. So Daniel Jones, he's been bad, but he's had his best games against us. He's 5-1-1 against us, which is just insane. That's insane. And his only loss against us was a really close loss. It was week 2 Thursday Night Football back in 2021. We won that game. I want to say it was 30-27 or 28, somewhere around there. But yeah, that's the only time we've beaten Daniel Jones so far. We got to beat Daniel Jones. It's got to end. Now, I know Dan Quinn, as the Cowboys defensive coordinator, he's like 6-0 against Daniel Jones, so undefeated. So we can create pressure on Daniel Jones. The Giants O-line allowed 5 sacks last week. Now, I think some of those sacks were on Daniel Jones, but 5 sacks allowed isn't great. Maybe like 3 or 4 of them were actually on the O-line, and then maybe 1 or 2 of them was on Daniel Jones himself. But the Vikings defensive line, they're getting a good amount of pressure on Daniel Jones. Now, their tackles are really good. Andrew Thomas, he is probably, not even probably, he is an all-pro tackle in the NFL. Probably a top 3, top 5 tackle in the NFL. And then Jermaine Illuminor is pretty solid as well. He replaced Evan Neal, who he's a backup at this point, which is pretty crazy to me because I know coming out, a lot of people expected him to be the best tackle in that draft class, but he's a backup now, so sucks for him. But their interior offensive line isn't great. Their center, John Michael Schmitz, isn't all that good. He struggled a lot last year. And then their guard, John Runyon, isn't bad, but I feel like Daron Payne had a solid game against the Bucs last week, but he just could not finish, and that's what we got to do this week. Finish Daniel Jones off. You got to bring him down to the ground. Daniel Jones, he's more athletic. He can run more than Baker Mayfield. He's more mobile than Baker Mayfield. So if you let Baker Mayfield do that to you, Daniel Jones could definitely do that to you as well, run the ball on you. So, we got to bring Daniel Jones down to the ground whenever we get pressure. I mean, last week, top 5 defensive line pass rush win rates in week 1. The Bears are at number 1, 71%, and we are at number 2, 67%. So we were getting constant pressure on Baker Mayfield, but we just couldn't finish him off. We couldn't bring him down to the ground, and that's what we got to do this week with Daniel Jones, man. We have to bring him to the ground, and we have to make him uncomfortable in the pocket, make him force throws, make him throw bad incompletions, maybe make him throw an interception or 2. I mean, we didn't get a single turnover last week, and I know the Bucs didn't either, but we got to force turnovers. If ball is life, then shoot, we're not alive right now. We're dead, so we got to force turnovers. And if we do that, then I feel like we have a good chance to win this game. I feel like we have a good chance to win this game in general, but we made a lot of mistakes last week that hopefully we cleaned up this week. But if not, then we're probably not going to win. But I feel like we have a good chance of winning. But one of the main keys, get pressure on Daniel Jones, which I feel like we can do, but also bring him down to the ground, which we did not do last week. Key to victory number 2, sticking to the defensive side of the ball. We have to contain Malik Nabers. He is the Giants' best weapon on offense by far. Their other weapons aren't terrible. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson, he's not a bad slot receiver. Darius Slayton, I like him. He's cooked us in the past a couple of times. I think in 2022, he had like a 50-some yard reception against us from Daniel Jones, pass from Daniel Jones. So he's been pretty good against us in the past. And then you have Devin Singletary as their running back. Devin Singletary, he isn't that scary. I mean, the Vikings defense did a good job of, holding him down. And last week against the Bucs, we didn't do a terrible job stopping the Bucs on the run. Rachaad White, he only had 10 carries for 31 yards, so 3.1 yards per carry, so that's not great. Bucky Irving, however, he did have a good game against us, especially in the second half. I feel like in the third, fourth quarter, we just didn't do a great job in the run game. But in the first half, we did, in my opinion. So, we could stop him on the run. I feel like we definitely can, especially, with Saquon not on the Giants anymore. He's an Eagle now. We could stop their run game. Devin Singletary, I'm not saying Singletary's bad, but he just isn't that scary. Their other running backs are Tyrone Tracy and then Eric Gray. I don't think they did much last week, so we could stop the run game. But going back to Malik Nabers, he had 5 catches for 66 yards last week. I feel like he could have had more if Daniel Jones looked his way more. So, he's a really good player. I feel like, it sucks that he's on the Giants because they don't have a quarterback. Daniel Jones is not the quarterback of the future for the Giants. They're definitely going to go after a quarterback next year. But Malik Nabers, he's an absolute dog. He was making tons of plays in training camp and made a couple nice catches in the preseason as well. Malik Nabers, he's really good. And, Manuel Forbes is out for this week's game. But our secondary just wasn't good last week against the Bucs. Now, I will say that Benjamin St-Juste, after reviewing the film, he wasn't as bad as people were saying. Now, he was still not great, but he at times had really good coverage on Mike Evans, like on both touchdowns. He had really good coverage on Mike Evans. He just never gets his head turned, which is insane to me. St. Juice, you're 6'3", get your head turned, try and make a play on the ball. You have good lane. Like I said, you're 6'3", man. You can turn around, try and make a play on the ball, and maybe you can pick it off or, bat down the pass. So, just get your head turned, and then you can possibly make a play on the ball. So St. Juice didn't have bad coverage last week, especially on Mike Evans, but, just got to get your head turned, man. You do. And then we had really bad communication. Mikey Sanders still, he got torched sometimes by Chris Godwin. Emmanuel Forbes, he was awful last week, but obviously he's not going to play. Noah Igbenogany, he was I didn't really notice much of him at all. And then our safeties, Jeremy Chin, he didn't look great at times. Quan Martin, I will say that he was everywhere on defense last week, which I hope to see more this week if he plays, of course. I think he will play, but if he doesn't, then, that will be unfortunate. But, Quan Martin, he looked lost sometimes, but he wasn't terrible last week. But overall, secondary just wasn't good last week, really. But I think it's mainly a communication thing. So if we improve the communication this week, then it should show on Sunday, and that will be a really good thing. I feel like if we improve the communication this week in practice, then we'll look way, way, way better on Sunday as a defense. And then finally, key to victory number 3, going over to the offensive side of the ball. We got to have a better offensive performance this week. And after reviewing the film, Cliff Kingsbury actually wasn't that bad last week. Now, was he perfect? No, but he wasn't terrible. Like, there were receivers open several times when I was watching the film. Like Luke McCaffrey, he got open a bunch. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a stat on Twitter, actually multiple stats on Twitter, that, it's kind of a graph that says how often the receivers get targeted while they had good separation, or if they had good separation. Luke McCaffrey, he got good separation on a good amount of his routes per the chart, but he just didn't get targeted much. I think he only got targeted like 4 or 5 times, and he had 3 catches for 18 yards. One of his catches were almost a touchdown, but he was stopped short on the 1-yard line. So, Jaden Daniels, he was a little gun shy last week. You could say, I feel like you could say pulled it down a little too much. Like, some of the runs obviously were design runs, but some, weren't, and they were just scrambles. And I'm not saying Jaden Daniels got to stop running. I mean, that's his superpower, all right? That is what he is really good at. Obviously, he's really good as a passer as well. We know he can be good as a passer, but, his, you can say his biggest superpower is running the ball. And if he has an open lane, then go for it, man. I mean, you saw last week his ability to use his legs. He had some really nice runs of 10-plus yards. Like, I think he had like an 11-yard run and a 17-yard run and a 15-yard run. So Jaden Daniels showed what he can do with his legs last week, just not so much as a passer. I mean, he still had some good passes, but, he missed Terry McLaurin on the deep bomb down the left sideline. It would have been a touchdown most likely. Terry probably would have went for 100 yards. And Terry, on film, he got open a decent amount of times, but Jaden Daniels just missed him, or not missed him, but just didn't look his way, didn't see him. So, Jaden seeing better, processing the field better is really key, and I feel like he will. It's his NFL debut, week 1, got to get the jitters out, and he probably got most of them out, but probably still some. But he probably did. I mean, Caleb Williams and Bo Nix, they didn't look good last week at all. He had the best rookie performance out of all 3 of them. Not saying he was amazing, but he definitely showed more flashes than all 3 of them. And, like I said, had the best performance. So, if Jaden Daniels can be a little less gun-shy, and just, if he has open receivers, then go for it. Take those shots deep down the field or in the middle of the field. Just hit your open receivers, and then you're good. And like I said, Cliff Kingsbury has to call a better game. Like I said, wasn't terrible last week, but, wasn't perfect, obviously. And I don't expect him to be perfect, but just got to be better than you were last week. And I think he will. The Giants defense isn't great. The Bucs defense is pretty good, especially their front 7. Now, I know they're missing some guys like Logan Hall. Kalijah Kingsley didn't play as well. But the secondary isn't bad. Now, they were down some cornerbacks. I think Bryce Hall got injured, as well as Zion McCullum. But Jamel Dean, he's good, and Antoine Winfield, Jordan Whitehead, they are good as well. So their defense isn't bad. But against the Giants defense, I feel like we can move the ball on them. Obviously, their front 7 is, I would say, good. Kayvon Thibodeau, he always plays good against us, but that's really when we had Charles Leno. He was getting decimated by Kayvon Thibodeau, to be honest. 5.5 of his 15.5 career sacks are against us, which isn't great. So we got to contain Kayvon Thibodeau. When he wasn't good last week, I mean, Giants fans say that he really has no pass rush bag. His main, move, I guess, is the bull rush, and even that fails a good amount of time. So he doesn't have a real pass rush bag, really. So we could contain Kayvon Thibodeaux. We'll see if Brandon Coleman or Cornelius Lucas gets a start at left tackle this week. I feel like it should be Brandon Coleman because we know what Cornelius Lucas is. So giving Brandon Coleman more opportunities will be really good for him. So that's that. Dexter Lawrence, he's a beast. Even Cliff Kingsbury said he was a beast in his press conference. So he's probably the second best defensive tackle in the NFL. At least in my opinion, he's really freaking good. So the interior offensive line, we got to neutralize him. We're not going to completely stop him. He's going to get his, good pass rushes at times, but we just got to neutralize him. And then Brian Burns didn't do much last week, but we know he can be a really, really, really good pass rusher. So we got to watch out for him as well. And then for our playmakers, receivers, gotta step up. Terry McLaurin, I know, Cliff Kingsbury didn't call his best game last week, and, he has to find Terry more opportunities to get the ball. But Terry, you're supposed to be an elite wide receiver. I think you are, but you gotta separate on your own as well. Even when a play just isn't looking right, you gotta find a way to, get open for Jaden Daniels. And he was open a couple times. Jaden just didn't look his way, but you got to separate on your own, even if the play call just isn't great. Got to do that. And I feel like he will this week. Deontay Bates, he has to shut him up. He was talking trash last year after the Giants beat us the second time, so I feel like Terry will probably shut him up, but we shall see. De'Ami Brown, let's see if he steps up. Didn't have a single target or catch last week, so we'll see about him. Luke McCaffrey, can he step up? Zach Ertz, he had 3 catches for 26 yards last week, so not terrible, but let's see if he can get more receptions. And then our run game, we have to establish a run game, and I feel like we can. The Giants didn't do a great job stopping the Vikings on the ground. I think they gave up like 7 yards of carry to Aaron Jones, so Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, they could get going early on, but that's the thing. We have to establish a run game early on so those guys can get open. So like I said, got to establish a running game. Just got to be better as an offense in general. And I feel like we will because the Giants' defense isn't great. But, we shall see. Now for my score prediction. Now, I know the Giants, they're 5-1-1 against us. Well, Daniel Jones is 5-1-1 against us in his last 7 games against us. He basically owns us, but I do have us winning. I think it's going to be a very, very, very close game. 24-20. I still think Daniel Jones, he's going to have like 1 or 2 touchdown passes, but I think our defense will be much improved this week, as well as our offense. Our kicker situation, Austin Cyber, hopefully he can be the kicker, but I'm just not sure at this point. He's not bad. He's not amazing per the stats, but he was pretty good with the Jets this summer in training camp in the preseason, so hopefully he can show something. Hopefully, he can be our kicker, but we shall see. But I do have us winning this game. Northwest Stadium, it's called. I was about to call it FedEx Field, but at Northwest Stadium, we got Wale performing at halftime. That should be pretty cool. Vernon Davis, he's the legend of the day. I'm sorry, not the day, the game. And then we're wearing our gold pants on Sunday. So we're bringing everybody out. We're bringing everything out. So, hopefully defense, like I said, can be more improved this week. We can contain Malik Nabers. We can contain Dexter Lawrence, although that will be hard because Dexter Lawrence, he's just a freak of nature. Hopefully we can contain him. We don't let Daniel Jones cook us. We, get him down to the ground when we get pressure on him. And then, like I said, our offense has to be better this week. And I feel like they will. Jaden Daniels, he's going to pass the ball more. He's still going to have some good rushes. I think 16 times is a lot. At most, RG3, the most carries he's had in the game is 13. So, Jaden Daniels in his first game, he passed him there. So 16 carries is a lot. But, if he has an open lane, then take that open lane. If you feel like you can take it like 10, 15, maybe 20 yards upfield. So overall, final score prediction, 24-20. Like I said, going to be a super close game, but I feel like we're going to ultimately come out with the W. So that is it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like down below, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment down below your score prediction for Sunday's game. And other than that, it's been King Sean, and I'm out. Peace.